I'm so honored to have Rachel Jackson back with us today, and I'm very excited about our conversation. And it is the illicit conversation of delving into what I would like to call the sacred, darker feminine arts. And Rachel has been amazing leading me into some practices, whether they're energetic practices, and we'll talk more about that. I'd like to go more into that in our conversation, but
Yeah.
also tarot. Rachel really introduced me. I had had some readings, but not as much as Rachel brings in not only tarot cards, but other cards, your own cards also within our sessions to help guide. So I'd really like just to start our conversation off today, Rachel. What do you think includes the sacred, darker feminine arts? Like, what does that bring up for you when I say that?
Oh, good question. So when you say darker, sacred, feminine arts, it kind of takes me to a hidden place.
Mhm.
And I think the big thing that I find with my spiritual practices is I've tried to normalize them because they are just a massive part of who I am and what I do. And there's been parts of me that's hidden them. So
Mhm.
you'll have heard me say, oh, I don't want to just be known as a tarot reader. So I don't want to just, you know, do that all over TikTok. And that's the only thing people know me for. And that's my own hidden parts that are coming out screaming, you know, hide it. When you say it's darker, I think that's coming from a place of what we've been taught from the church, to be honest. I don't think there's a darkness to it. I think there's a darkness being labeled on it. So for me, I don't really see them as dark at all.
Fair enough. Could we be open to the interpretation? Because I also believe that darker has been given a negative label and a negative connotation.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
and when I'm saying it, I think I'm meaning it more in how you and I have discussed, but darker, like within, like intimate, like growth, like womb, like
Yeah,
darkness, almost like this going within and a connection to something bigger. And it's not,
yeah.
so I do also, I think it's important that I want to take back the word dark. I really do, because I think
Mm,
there's this, it's like bad connotation to it, like it's evil or it's something we shouldn't be doing. And I don't think that's what darkness is. I think it can be, right?
yeah,
There's an aspect that can be, but I think that in this it's taking it back to the sacredness of what women have been doing for years and years. And it was more in a maybe secretive is part of it, but there's almost like this sacred like space and I picture it being darker and I picture it being intimate. So I
yeah.
guess that's more what I'm meaning by that. But let's go back to what you were saying with normalizing these pieces. And tarot, what else would you include in?
Well, let me touch on what you spoke on there because I think that's really powerful. As soon as you started to take the darkness into the womb, that is a very different type of darkness. And I think that's the darkness that has really been lost and is part of what I do honor in what I teach and what I do. And it is that feminine energy of we are the creators. We are the powerful creators, and we have that womb space for that reason. And whether your womb has birth children or not, there's a different energy to it. For me, my womb has never done that, but that doesn't mean it's not operational or doesn't have that same power. And the way I see the womb space is that dark energy where things, ideas are birthed. There's like, it's as if it is all the darkness, like under the soil. And then suddenly there's this spark of life. And that spark of life is magic or universal energy or whatever you want to call it. But as women, we hold that power and probably more so than men. So we do have that innate power and that innate connectiveness to that darkness to be able to create. And that's where tools like tarot and things like that help me draw on that, but aren't necessarily the essence behind what it is. It's more behind us being women and the women aspect of that sacredness that we bring that has been lost massively over time from, exactly like you said, darkness being told it's something that it shouldn't be, whereas actually it is something innately sacred to us as women, which we do need to claim back.
Absolutely. And I think going from what you're saying, the women femininity, right, is associated more with the moon
Yeah.
and the darkness. And the womb space is absolutely about creation, whether it's a baby, whether it's an idea, whether it's,
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it is, and the blood and the shedding and the preparation for whatever creation that is. And I do think there's this massive importance of women reconnecting to this part that I do believe the church and the patriarch shunned out
Yeah.
and really told us and then conditioned the world that it's bad. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that when we look at the darkness as regenerative and the sacredness and the piece of the feminine woman in it, it does shift. And that's
Mm.
why I'm loving that we're having this conversation because it is a passion of mine for us to reclaim more of our
Yeah.
darkness in a I don't even want to have to justify it to reclaim more of our darkness.
No, and we shouldn't justify it neither. It is part of us, and that's part of what I teach and what I talk about. I am light and dark. I am that fire and that calm. And I love that about me. Like, I love that I honor those two sides of me and that I don't shy away from them. I did for years, people would tell me I'm too outspoken, too fiery, too. And now I'm just like, do you know what? I get paid for that. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. You had I want to get a little bit and understand a little bit more your ancestral heritage. You're in England, but
Mm-hmm.
tell me, let's go a little bit into your ancestral background.
So I've spoken to my grandma around her family, and through my meditations and different connections, I've met her her grandma. So that would be my great great grandma. And the energy there, she was very intuitive. She didn't care. She lived in that energy and she was proud of it. Very outspoken, very connected with who she was, not who she thought she needed to be. So that energy was quite a free spirit when I connected in. Her daughter was very different, but still quite spiritual. So I felt her energy, she was more confined. She had a healing energy. She was the woman on the street that everybody would go and get. She would lay people to rest. She would be the person who was the midwife of the street. It wasn't her job in any way, but she was the woman that everybody would come and get. So she was definitely a healer, but in a more traditional sense of what was acceptable to do that in your local neighborhood type of thing around here. But she wouldn't really step further into that. I think she read some tea leaves like my mum before I did, but it wasn't as open or, they weren't really, they were still Protestant. They wouldn't class themselves as spiritual in that sense. So my grandma was very Protestant. She was very interested in anything spiritual. She said she always used to tell me she went to a spiritual church when she was younger and she got told off and thinks that she got taken over by a spirit. I don't know how true this is. She was very fantasy. She had a good imagination, my grandma, but it could have happened. It genuinely could have happened. But she was still quite traditional. Very she wouldn't be open to be known as spiritual, even though she would say things to me.
Mhm.
But my mum wasn't really. She would go and see tarot readers, she would go and see energy healers, but then wouldn't be fully bought in. So I think it's got lost through the generations. And then on my father's side, I don't know because his mum died when he was 2.5. She is one of my guides and she's actually helped me quite a lot open up spiritually, but I don't know what connection down the line was coming from her side of the family. Yeah.
Wow.
It's hard to know what was coming out of families because as well people didn't speak of it. It was dangerous to speak of, really, and we were taught that it wasn't normal. We haven't really had that background where we've had that open connection through our families of what is spiritual, where it's come from, has it come down the line, has it come from my soul's purpose. I'm not 100% sure.
So when did you first recognize, maybe not outwardly, like publicly, but when did you first feel this intuitive power within you?
Mine was dormant for quite a long time. I've always been good at reading people. I've always been a natural coach. So I just assumed it was that ability more than anything else. I've always been drawn to go and see tarot readers and things. So if I had a problem, I would always go to a tarot reader and never go to a therapist. We don't really do that here in the UK. And that was where I was always pulled. And I always had this real feeling that I was just living in the wrong realm. And I was constantly looking for magic. So when Harry Potter come out, I was just obsessed. Like I loved Labyrinth when I was younger. Anything with like a little mystical edge, I was all over it. And I just felt like I just was constantly looking for magic in my life. And that was probably my soul calling me back to the magic I had without me realizing. So when I started diving into it, I was actually about 35 when I went to see a tarot reader, and he said to me, you should be healing, you should be doing different things. I went to see a tarot reader then. She said, you could be doing this for a living. And I was thinking, oh, great. Everybody tells me that, but I don't know what to do. And I just didn't know how to access it. I thought it was this random gift that suddenly drops in, and didn't realize that actually meditation was the key until I was 35 and I went to a spiritual development class and started to meditate and connect. And that was how it opened up, really.
And then how did that open up? So you kind of go to this tarot reader, they tell you this, you go to this spiritual meditation
Yeah.
course.
Just weekly classes, weekly get together. There was different healers, different people there who had different levels of intuition. And this guy, Mark, started teaching what he knew. And then if the other healers took a session, they would teach what they knew. And they would probably just guide you through a meditation, and then we'd do a bit of learning on different things. And it just connected with me with meditation. So I started doing that, even though I felt I was doing it wrong, because he would say, there's a white light. And I'm like, I can't see it. I know something's there. I'm just trusting it, but I can't see what you're telling me to see. So that was really frustrating at first. And my whole aim really at that point was I was going through what I would say now is a dark night of the soul. So I was going through a period where everything was crumbling and I was needing that help. I was needing that guidance. So I went to this class just purely to do something for me. And my only aim was, wouldn't it be nice if I could learn to read tarot? There was healers there that was so gifted. And I thought, there's absolutely no way I could ever do what they do. And little did I know that the floodgates were about to open. And yeah, they actually come to me for healing now. And it's crazy to think it was just a gift that I did not know about. And for whatever reason, I remember when I was younger, I had a lot of bad dreams. So whether that was people connecting to me and I didn't like it and I shut it down, I'm not sure. But I just didn't have it readily available like I do now, which the actual things I see now and what happens is it's the magic. It's crazy. It's the magic I always saw. But sometimes I have to pinch myself that I can just step into and feel into other realms that they're not visible here. And it's exciting.
I just could listen to you talk about it forever. For the sake of, because this is your world, I love this world. Not everybody is so familiar with it, right? So
Yeah.
just going back a couple steps, you shared the floodgates. Little did you know the floodgates are about to burst wide open.
Yeah.
What were the beginnings, right? You mentioned tarot. So like how did that form? And then I want to get into a conversation you and I had kind of over the weekend of some
Mm,
new information that came in. But the
yeah.
floodgates open, what does that look like in this
Well,
woman's life?
I say floodgates. It was a slow drip, shall we say. So I started with the meditation and learning more about that. And Mark, the tarot reader, was trying to teach me his way of learning tarot. So he had me journaling through all of the cards and thinking about what each one meant. Now that didn't really work for me. It was great and I kind of got some imagery, but it wasn't the way for me to learn tarot. So for me, it just started with getting nudges that would come through. So I would get called to be more curious about certain things. So initially it was manifestation. I started looking into the law of attraction. That opened up gratitude journaling. I started looking into EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, tapping. That opened up quite a lot for me around the limiting beliefs and healing that side of it. So I learned more about that and become a practitioner. I saw an oracle card reading, so course that I went on. So I started learning about oracle cards first, which opened me up more to the tarot initially. So being able to read the oracle cards and trust what was coming through. So that was a big part for me. I'm claircognizant, which is one of the clairs. There's different clairs you can have. And one of them is claircognizance, which means that you have a knowing. So when you have a knowing, there's no real vision comes through. You don't hear things. It's more just you have to trust yourself. And it is like your own thoughts are dropping in. It's like I get a piece and I just sit back and I know what to say or I know what I'm seeing and I trust it. So once I started to understand that, I just trusted what I said when I got the oracle cards and it started to build from there. Because I began to trust that, I started to get more visuals. So my meditations were getting clearer. I was able to see more that I was guided towards. So it was a really, I say slow progress, but I'm 42 now. It started when I was 35. And the difference in where I am now is quite incredible. So even over that 7-year period, it's been a learning journey. So learning more tools and techniques, but also because I'm claircognizant, trusting that I don't necessarily need the method in order to see it. So I also started to learn more about the Akashic Records and how to access them. And that was really one of the floodgates that opened for me with the Akashic Records, because I know the conversation we're going to go into in a minute, that opened up the concept of different times and different places that you've lived. So different timelines, essentially, which is where my journey was taking me. Definitely, I accessed different timelines. And the original way I did that was through the Akashic Records, which is basically a library for your soul. So it's got every instance that your soul has been through is documented in the records. And it is a big library that's open and people see it in different ways and you can access it in different ways. Basically, you can go in, you can access the information, you can heal different things that have happened, because I'm a big believer that everything's energy. If you heal something from a past lifetime, you're going to bring that healing into this lifetime, because time it isn't linear like we think. So that past lifetime is running just like we're running now. It's all happening. So it all has that knock-on ripple effect and helps you. If you go in and heal a past life, it's going to help you in this life with whatever you've brought in from that lifetime. So the Akashic Records helped me personally heal a lot. And the more I've healed, the more connected I've become. But also it's helped me heal for clients as well. So it's given me that two-pronged approach, really. And that was a big piece of it. And then my coaching's evolved over time. So that's helped me access more and I trust more with my clients. So I'm able to go in and help them with their timelines and clear energy. And that's evolved. But essentially, when I talk about clearing timelines, we are going into a visual that either that I see or they see, but I can guide them into it. So it's definitely evolved and it's grown, and it's totally different to what I ever imagined I would be able to do. I also did an angelic Reiki along the way. So lots of different modalities that have opened me up incrementally. I work with guides and angels, so it's very high vibrational, and it's more positive energy than something that would be more grounded, like a medium. They would work with more spiritual energy that's on this plane, whereas I work with higher vibrational energies. So it gives me a different take on what I get as well. If I'm connecting with anybody's ancestor, it's more that healing line down the ancestral than getting a message from, say, somebody's mum or something like that. So it's a bit different in that sense as well.
Absolutely. So you mentioned there's 4 or 5 but you're claircognizant.
Yeah.
And as this conversation, I'd love you to share with our listeners the other clairs. I'd love that.
So you put me to the test here, because one thing with me being claircognizant, I have trusted everything that comes through to me. So I don't study
The other one.
spirituality as some people might.
Sure.
So I'm not good at rhyming things off like that, but I will try. So there's clairvisual, so which means that you see normally through your third eye chakra. So you'll see visions, maybe visions of the future, or you can see visions that will help people, but that's a visual clair. It's clair audio. So that is where you hear things. You'll hear voices, you'll hear your guides, you'll hear different people speaking to you, whether that's, if you're a medium, you'll hear that through your clair audio. So that's something that I haven't really had. I haven't got access to that. I do have access to the visual now, but the claircognizance come first. I'm trying to think what the other ones are. I think there's clairsent, but
Yeah.
we might need to Google it. But I just go with what's coming through. I don't potentially really study them, because when I started to study things, I was trying to look for them. And that's what I find with a lot of my clients. They understand how certain things can come through, but that doesn't mean it's going to come through for them in that way. So they're missing their intuition as it's hitting them, because they're looking for it to come in a certain way. One of my clients used to get a hot flush, and like her body used to react, and she missed it for ages. She was thinking it was menopause. When something was happening and her intuition was trying to come through, her body would scream at her. It would come through in hot flushes. She'd feel dizzy. She'd get lightheaded. And I was trying to tell her that is the way your intuition speaks. You've got to ask what the message is. Ask, and that's when the symptoms will start to calm down. But she was waiting for it to come in, like drop in like a thought, or get a vision of what she was meant to see. And I was like, but that isn't the way your intuition speaks to you. You've got to start to understand how it speaks to you. So whatever way your body is trained to decode the message is how it'll happen. It's not a case of it's going to come in like you're going to get this spirit guide that's going to stand right in front of you and suddenly tell you all this information. I wish that would happen, but it took me months my spirit guide started by showing me his hand. I was like, come on, it took a few meditation. We didn't get a name for I don't know how long. And they don't show you it, because suddenly my spirit guide is this old man in like a brown kind of cloak. And if he stood in front of me, I probably would have panicked. I'd be like, what is this? So they're going to do it at a rate that feels good to you, and your body's going to decode it, or your mind's going to decode it in a way that feels right to you. So you've got to start to understand what feels different, what's coming through different. I've just done a meditation. Do I feel hot? Do I feel something in my solar plexus? Do I feel a tingling in my mind? What is it that is coming through for you? It's not going to be the same as what happens for me. And that's where we've got to start to really understand how different we are in that sense as well.
Like really understanding that the mass way to do things is not, it doesn't work for everybody. And so
No.
like just because this A, B, or C way works for someone else, like I have to discover like what it is for me and how that works. It's been super frustrating at times, right? So it's the same with our intuition. It's the same with our guides and different things like that.
Yeah.
So tell me, let's go back a little bit into this weekend. So we know that your knowing is one of like your prime way that you get your intuition. And then, I mean, you shared too, right? You have this clairvoyance. So let's talk about how that really dropped in so heavy for you.
So for me, if I take you back a few steps, I am a leadership coach and that's my background. And in a very corporate world, I've been a leadership coach and I still do corporate coaching as well. So for me, there's just been this level of one, being really proud of being able to access my spiritual side and also being able to read tarot and things like that. But I remember when I first went to that meditation class, I had a really good paying job, but I was miserable. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could read tarot? And I really thought for a hobby, because in my mind, I was telling myself, there's absolutely no way I could read tarot for a living. It was never going to make me the money I make in my corporate world. So there was this real shame around the money and what you could do as a tarot reader and what was available to you, because around here it is literally people would pay £20 to get their tarot read. It is not a lucrative business in any way, shape or form. So I had this real issue with being able to make money off tarot and also not wanting to just be seen as a tarot reader. I've got all this other energy work I do, but also all the leadership and all the strategy and so I blend the masculine and the feminine really strongly. And that was where I didn't want to be pigeonholed. I'm really multi-passionate about things. So I love doing my cards online. And actually, most of my clients get attracted to me from doing that. But there was still this block or this energy around it that I was holding back from. This weekend, we did a ritual with a couple of my other business friends, and we did a full moon ritual, and I guided the meditation. I didn't really get to explore it at the time, but I listened to it the next day, and my eyes were streaming. I was yawning all the way through. In this ritual, we let go, we burned whatever wasn't working for us, and we lifted up into the new timeline we wanted to be living in. It was super powerful, but there was a lot of journaling come off the back of it. There was a lot of energy to clear for me, a lot of old healing. And what really come through and what message I've been getting from my guides for a while is that I'm a bridge. And I kind of understood it, but it hadn't clicked fully. So this energy of me being a bridge, I always thought it was a bridge between people's guides and them. But it wasn't. It was actually, I'm a bridge between the life you live in and the life you want to live. And what really come through strongly for me is the word seer. And this word seer, I did have to look it up just to check it was kind of logically the right word for me, because my logical brain does kick in. And it felt like a seer is not a fortune teller, but someone who can see into the future, can see into the past, can see into whatever timeline. If you wanted to label what gifts I've got, it is that I am a seer. And that energy of I can dive into your future timeline. And that's why I coach the women I do, because I bridge them from where they are now to the timeline they want to be living, the most successful one. And that's what we connect with, and we operate from that level and bring the business in from that level. But also by being a seer and what I do, I can connect in with your past timelines. I can connect in with your energy in the womb. I can connect in with any lifetime or any energy you have created, and not just connect, but transmute that energy for you. It really is that seeing it, transmuting it, and allowing it to help you bridge to that new timeline. This word seer just hit me, and it allowed me to stop worrying. It's not down to me where people find me. I've just got to get this energy out there and start talking about it. So it really brought home and allowed to land that I was safe to be spiritual in the work I do. And I've always felt that, but there's been something shielding me from that slightly. And also this idea of, one thing I talk about is people being queens and stepping into their queen energy. And it sat with me, but the word queen gets banged about a lot. And sometimes it can grate a little bit, but I've always felt something connected to it. And there's been this energy dropping in of high priestess for me. So it's like that high priestess, seer energy. And actually, back when we were vocal about our talents and we were in our feminine energy and we were in that power, I would have been that advisor to the king or queen. That is exactly what I would have been. They would have sought me out in order to get their next strategic move, in order to understand how to build their empire. That's the role I was always meant to play and probably did in past lifetimes. But as well, that's what I'm doing now for those empire builders. So it just really landed. That is what I do. I'm a bridge, I'm a seer, and actually a high priestess. So when you think of covens, when you think of women gathering, like that would have been my role, that high priestess. And that is what I do in this lifetime as well, now that I'm able to do it. And I think it's given me that sense of stop messing about with something so powerful that you had to hide another time. And now you've got the platforms in order to bring it to people and help people with it. Do not ever take for granted what gift has come with me through the lifetime. So I think it's really kind of hit home for me that I've got to stop hiding that part of me and step into that high priestess energy, step into that seer energy, and tell people what you can do for them. Because from working with me, you've felt it, but sometimes it's hard to put it into words, what that means or what that looks like. But actually, that part of me, I've got to now start to claim and just say, this is what I do for you. And people are going to get it or they're not. But that's a power that really, as a business owner, you want in your back pocket. And I'm proud to say that now.
Absolutely. I do want to touch on the human aspect of, I believe that women keep, because we all have access to our intuition. We all have this, we have a power that
Yeah.
is within us. It differs between what it is in different levels and how much it's let in. Women, right? Like the witch wound is, I mean, women were burned at the stake and had their children taken from them and were called crazy and all of these different things for these gifts that they had. So there's that piece to it. When you talk about, yeah, there's never been a more opportune time for women to step into their gifts of all natures.
Mm-hmm.
Not to focus on the fears, but would you be willing to name some of the fears that you had to alchemize and transmute in order to step more into your power? That's a place where some
Yeah.
women get stuck in these old fears and these old beliefs and these conditioned thoughts that aren't even theirs.
Yeah. So it's really interesting because whether it's down to intuition or whether it's down to that woman energy, it's happening anyway for everybody. And it's really an epidemic that is happening right across all countries. And we think we're in the Western civilization and women can do what they want and all those things. But there's so many subtle signs that are keeping us smaller or keeping us silent or keeping us disconnected from that energy. And I'll explain a few. And I think that's where my two worlds collide, in a sense, where there is that side where I am strategic and I'm masculine and I have that energy. And then I have this other energy that's feminine and connected and all those things. But the two come together. Often we're told we're too much, we're too aggressive. If we have an opinion, we say it in a way that's sharp, or we get told we need to be quiet. There's all sorts of subliminal messages. We teach our girls to be perfect. We teach our boys to take risks. We tell women that they should be lucky that they're the only woman in the room, or being the only woman in a corporate room is normal. And this type of energy subliminally comes in. And what it does is it starts to stifle our voice and it starts to stifle our energy and it starts to stifle our confidence. So we end up not believing in our own thoughts, not believing in our own desires. And when we disconnect that part of us, if you think of that creative energy we talked about in the womb, those desires, our own confidence in what we think, that is what feeds power into those creative energy. So we used to weave our words into spells. So if we're disconnected from what we're thinking, or we're doubting what we're thinking, we're not putting our words out into the universe. We're not putting our desires out into the universe, because we're putting all of our family's needs first. We're putting our husband first. The husband needs to be the breadwinner, so the husband has to go out and we'll put their business first before we put ours, or we'll put our motherhood first before we put ours. So it is constantly knocking us back, disconnecting us from what truly lights us up. Those desires end up being how we access our intuition. So once women start to connect with the power of what is it they truly want, what power have they got inside, and speaking up for themselves, setting boundaries, dropping the good girl act, dropping the perfectionism act, that is once you start to get into your intuition, because your intuition is dark. Your intuition is not nice. It is not the nice girl. That's the fake person that you've been trying to be. Your intuition is an absolute badass, and she will tell you when you are messing about or you are not being truthful to yourself. And she'll tell you in a way that either connects with your body and makes you hurt, or it'll come out in another way. It wasn't about witchcraft. Half of those women were not witches. They weren't doing anything like that, but they were speaking up. Some of them were just, the men who were hunting them found them attractive, and that is what got them burnt. So we've got this energy of, one, hiding our sexuality, hiding the fact that we're attractive, hiding the fact that we're meant to look good and that people are meant to find us attractive. But that doesn't mean that they are meant to take a liberty or be able to do something that we don't like. One, from our bodies, we're not as connected to our sexuality. We're not as connected to how sexy we feel. We're not meant to say that we're beautiful. We're not meant to say that we look good. We're meant to be very private. We're not meant to talk about sex. We're not meant to talk about money. We're not meant to talk about desires, because that's all improper, especially if you're British. So all of these things just stifle that woman. And when you think of that witch, when you think of that intuitive goddess, when you think of that high priestess, she had her feet in the ground. She was dancing under the moon. She was wild. She was howling. She was doing all the things that are just so freeing. And women do not do that anymore. They don't do things that are even just tell someone you have crossed a boundary, you've crossed a line. I am exhausted. Will you put the tea on tonight? Like, all those things we just don't do. And that is what disconnects us from our intuition and also from being truly who we are. And I know when I started getting into spirituality, I had a real issue with people thinking I was going to suddenly wear a kaftan and have a wrap around my hair and start to braid my hair and all those things. I was going to be all hippie. Couldn't be further from the truth. I love luxury. Like, it's connected me more with money. I want the designer life. I know exactly what my worth is. I'm not some skint hippie wanting to live that life just because I'm spiritual. Spiritual doesn't mean nice. And it doesn't mean you have to be the good girl. It means that you're a badass and you know exactly what your boundaries are. So I think that part often gets shunned as well. Like, if we're spiritual, we've got to be this love and light, and I'm sending you all this good prayers, and I'm sending you all this healing. No, if you're an asshole, I'm not sending you anything. So it's really this balance of being true to yourself and letting yourself speak and letting yourself take up space and letting yourself be free to be who you want to be. And that might hurt people. I chose to leave my husband because I knew I had this mission to do. And I could not have done that married to him, because he was taking that energy from me and I needed to claim it back. So sometimes it takes those tough decisions to be who it is you're meant to be. And those women who got burned, most of them were willing to do that. And we've got to stand up now and do it ourselves. Sorry, Elizabeth.
Yeah, it was beautiful and perfect. And so much of what the illicit feminine is all about. I mean, you couldn't have put it into better words.
Yeah.
And what I believe women need to step into. And it was just a beautiful piece. So, just on a personal note, before we wrap up, what were some of your own personal fears around claiming, and I get you didn't want to be pigeonholed, so I'm not talking about that so much around tarot, but claiming some of the tarot, the seer, these beautiful, intuitive, spiritual gifts that you do have.
One of the things, and I think because I'm quite unconventional, I like to be different, I like to be bold. One of the things that actually intrigues me is when I talk about it, people who aren't spiritual think I'm a little bit mental, which actually I do quite like. So there's a part of me that does, yeah, I lean into the madness. But there's the part of me that really, there's an energy around my business. It's a high value business. It isn't something I'm just dabbling in. It's not something where I'm wanting to charge £20 for a tarot reading. So that was my issue around how do I take the spiritual side and make it high end and make it for those high end clients. It's normalizing it to that sense. And that's one thing I am very good at. I can break down what happens spiritually into a way that makes sense logically and makes sense strategically. So that's a gift I have. And that is why my issue was, if somebody saw me as a tarot reader, would they have the same judgment I had? But my tarot cards are all linked to business. They're very pointed with what I talk about. So that was just my own judgment creeping in and my own issues creeping in around that feeling like I needed to hide. So my issue that I had around that was purely ego based, and my ego keeping me from something that, one, brings me joy, allows me to tap into that claircognizance, because the tarot cards are a prompt for me. The message I get isn't necessarily the message that's fully on the cards. So that's where I don't really follow the rules. Tarot readers, some love to have this card means that and this card means that. Your good ones are always intuitive anyway. So they're reading whatever they get more than they're reading the card itself or the meaning of the card. So it allows my claircognizance to come out in full flow. So that's one thing I need to let go of, and I need to serve clients in whatever way is meant to be served, rather than it being something that I've got some stigma around, or it's holding me back in a sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Our own judgments, well, everything, right, is a reflection of like our own thinking, right? So when you can recognize, like, if a judgment's showing up in somebody else, it's a judgment that we're having on ourselves. Just to go into one of the things I appreciate so much about your tarot readings is that, because I've had other tarot readings done, and I've shared this with you, your interpretation is always very forward thinking in your tarot reading. And I like that it's not, and I haven't had, I've probably had maybe a handful or two handfuls of them done. But with yours, it's always like this beautiful intuitive guidance. There is a difference, and I just want to touch on it, between some tarot readers are going to go to how do I want to say this? This is too strong of a term, but almost like the evil darkness, versus I've never once felt that in your readings. What's the difference?
Yeah. So I've been to a lot of different tarot readers, and I think the big difference is who's done the healing or who hasn't. And one thing that I've seen and I've witnessed quite a few times, whether it's a tarot or a medium, people pouring their own energy into the cards. For instance, if they had a view on something that's going to come out in the cards, I know I went to see one with my friend, and she was seeing someone who was married and had left him to break free and live a better life without him. And this woman had told her that she should get back with him and she should forgive him and all these things, and just get on with it type of thing. So when she come out, I had to debrief her on absolutely not, like, that is not the future. And that's the difference. So one thing, it's not that I'm not a tarot reader. I am very much a tarot reader. The one thing I am not is a fortune teller. So I believe that your timelines aren't static. You get to choose which timeline you want to live in. And my job being the bridge is to access the highest timeline for you and allow you and guide you to how to access that and make that your 3D reality. So a fortune teller will be able to tap into whatever vision they see for you. But if they haven't done much healing or they don't have that high vibrational thinking, they'll be looking at the normal surroundings around you and focusing on something around that. So they're probably operating from the timeline that you're currently in rather than the timeline that you could have. So that's the big difference with me. I am the bridge, and I am that seer that accesses the highest timeline possible because there's even more available to you. But it's the highest timeline that your soul will show us at the moment in order to get you there so that you're ready for the next step. Because believe me, it's better than what you can see in that one. So even though they're very positive, it's only the first step and things get better and better. So that's where I'm different. I read tarot. Tarot is a tool I use and I love it, but I use it from a point of view. It supports what I do as a bridge rather than being a fortune teller who will operate in the timeline that you're on. We transition into a different timeline and bring that into your reality. So
That's really helpful for the clarity around that.
One example I've used with that, one of my clients come to me for a life by design reading, and at the time they were in a role, they were in a job they didn't enjoy, they had no intention of leaving. She come really wanting to know about her love life, and the cards were showing me this future where she had her own business, she was running a TikTok, she was off in Ibiza coaching, and this was something that I knew her personally. So I was even shocked. I was like, I'm going to say it, but I don't know where this is coming from because I imagined her just having a career and that was it. And that card reading actually initiated and made her take choices that have led her into that reality now. So that's where the difference is. I give you steps that are going to actually come to fruition rather than reading what could be possible and people leaving the session and not going and changing anything, and it just being just confirmation of what could be.
Well, and I think that's such the important difference, right? And you shared this when you were choosing to go to a reader versus like a therapist, is actually using the information not just for like a novelty, subconscious, like, oh, I just got this information, I'm not going to do anything with it, where you're actually using your vision and the seeing of the higher timeline to help people to get there,
Yeah.
which is another aspect of why I love your work so much, because
Yeah.
it is forward moving. It's about change. It's about the transformation. First of all, is there anything else that you want to close on though around our conversation?
Just what you touched on there. So it is always forward movement because I am a big believer in healing, but heal to move forward. So I don't, when I work with clients, we're not going to look back forever. It's heal to move forward. So everything's energy. You might have had deep rooted beliefs. You might have had things that you feel are really come with you through the lifetime. You could shift that in an instant. It doesn't have to hold on to you. So that's key. Everything's energy, and all these beliefs and things that you bring in with you as well can be shifted instantly as long as we release that energy. So the moving forward bit is quicker. And that's my aim. My job on this planet, I do believe, is to bridge you to that place. So my job is to get you there. And that means healing, but healing fast.
And that's the other piece. And when you introduced me to there can be a quantum leap in your healing, times like a human construct. So it doesn't have to take months and agonizing. It really can be done when you release that energy. So I think that's also when you're looking into this, it's like a really good reminder too, because it can heal and you do get to move on, move forward. Will you come back and we can talk about timelines? Because I think this is another like conversation that is not, spiritual world. Yeah, people understand timelines, but I mean, I want to bring this to people who don't understand about timelines. And it's fascinating because there are, again, like tarot readers, there's different people who see different timelines and it can, it's interesting and it's really important also like to understand the different
Yeah,
interpretations.
yeah, definitely. And I think even in the spiritual world, it's not as well known as you think. I think sometimes when you're around people who talk about them all the time, and she said she went to a retreat and they took her into a highest timeline, and she'd never experienced that before. So I was blown away at the fact that was the first time she'd experienced it, to be honest, even though she works with someone, I won't name names, but a really big coach in America who claims to be very intuitive, but that type of work hasn't reached that yet. So it isn't as well known as you think. And I think it would be good to share, and especially how it works and how you can utilize it as well.
Okay, we're doing that. I'm excited for our next conversation, but I have loved this. And thank you for opening us up to some of the different ways people can access their intuition, how some of your stories, and then obviously our different intuitive senses, and shared with
Yeah.
us your journey. So I'm also excited to hear, maybe when we do the timeline or after, where this next level of your journey with really claiming and stepping into the power of your seer and like your high priestess, and where that's taking Rachel.
Yeah, I mean, to briefly tell you that, that is just me totally concentrating on the area of clients that I know when I've been fed who I need to be working with. So it is those empire builders, it is women who can see themselves really making a massive impact in lots of different ways. And it's, for me, it's making sure that I honor that and stick to my lane in that. So, but that is the people I work with. So really, women who have started the business, they've got a steady traction, but they know they've got that vision in the heart that like, this is going to be so big, but I just don't know how to get there. That's where I come in as the bridge, and in a couple of different ways. So the mastermind, it's open now till the 9th of September. So that's for a group coaching for people. And then there's Elevated as well, which is the one-on-one with me where we get really in that deep container for a year. So yeah, but it's exciting. My job is to light a woman up so that she goes and lights her part of the world up. That is my job, and I've got to stick to it.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, right? Like I just got that image. Okay, so people can find out more about working with you in the
Yeah.
various modalities on your website, right? Which we'll include in the show
Yeah.
notes, and connect with you on Instagram.
Yeah. Please do.
Um,
That would be good.
yes. Oh, Rachel, I love our time together. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I loved it today. It was great.
It was awesome. Okay, we'll see everyone next time. Thank you so much.